What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the BizDad Podcast. Today, I am really looking forward to having a conversation with Dr. Kelly Flanagan. As a GoBundance guy, your name is all over the place in GoBundance. You're one of our preferred partners over in GoBundance. You've coached and talked to a lot of different couples in GoBundance. Usually, I'm asking the psychological questions, bouncing back and forth, so hopefully you don't turn the table on me as I have these conversations. But really looking forward to having a chat with you. If you could, sir, please go ahead and introduce yourself. Tell us about your family and tell us about your business.
Yeah, so I'm Dr. Kelly Flanagan, although if you call me Dr. Flanagan, I won't know what to do about that. So I often say, call me Kelly, Dr. Kelly at the most. So, let's see. I am married to another Dr. Kelly, believe it or not. We met in graduate school at Penn State. We just celebrated our 24th wedding anniversary, but we met in 1999 when we were going to graduate school at Penn State. Kelly, she wrote home to her mom, said, just met this great guy named Kelly, can never work out, that's too weird. And so I often joke that I overcame more than the average number of barriers to end up with a great wwoman. She got her doctorate as well, so we're Dr. Kelly and Dr. Kelly. And we went on, we met, we were married within 2 years, still in graduate school, had our first child still in graduate school. His name is Aiden. He's 22 now. And he is off in Chicago. We live outside of Chicago, about 90 minutes, in a small town. He's in Chicago and working days at Trader Joe's to pay the bills, and then spends his nights and weekends chasing his dream to become a comedian. He came to us in 8th grade, said, Mom and Dad, I think I know what I want to do when I grow up.
Nice.
And I think he'd been sent to the office like 3 times that week, and we're like, why do we think this is not such a good good news we're about to get? And he said, I want to be a comedian. We're like, oh, well, that makes sense, actually. So he's been locked in ever since. So he's 22, living in Chicago, chasing that dream. Our middle guy is just turned 18. He's a senior in high school. We are in for us, I think an emotional season. You know, when our first one launched, we didn't have a reference point for how much life changes when they leave. You know, that old adage, you've got 18 summers, right? Jim and Jamie Shields have popularized that. Like, you have 18 summers. And so we're aware that we've are coming up on the end of that concentrated time of being with him, and it's pretty emotional. And then our youngest is 16. She's a girl. Caitlin just got her driver's license 3 weeks ago when she turned 16. Nice. She is delightful. They share one car, Quinn and Caitlin. And he was driving her to school the other day. And I have this ritual that I've been doing now, at least all of this school year, where when they pull out of the driveway, I go out and I wave them off until they're gone, right? It's like, not going to get too many more chances to do this.
Yeah, no kidding.
Right? And but they were jabbering back and forth about something on the way out the door. And I walk out, and she's sitting there in the passenger seat, and she mouths to me really dramatically, "Help." And that just like captures their relationship perfectly. And boy, we're gonna miss him when he's gone. But then we'll have a couple years with Caitlin, and then she'll be gone too. So we're coming up on that threshold pretty quickly, and it's very salient for us. And so that's where we're at right now.
Welcome to the BizDad Podcast, where we dive into the melding of fathership and entrepreneurship with your host, the original BizDad himself, Adam Barr. Adam is a Christian, a former Air Force officer, a dad to 3 amazing kids, a coach, a real estate investor, and a business owner. On this podcast, he'll explore the unique journeys of amazing dads who are striving for greatness in both business and family. So whether you're a dad who is an aspiring entrepreneur, a seasoned business owner, or simply a man striving to be a better dad, get ready as the BizDad brings you conversations to inspire, challenge, and equip you to be a better dad and entrepreneur. And now, here's Adam.
You're a few years ahead of me. By that, I mean 12 years ahead of me. My oldest is only 10. My oldest is about to turn 11, but 6th grade. So, I mean, I don't have a ton of time because it does fly by, right? These last 11 years have flown by. And, you know, in those 11 years, we've lived in a couple different countries and a couple different states and all over the place. And I'm like, all those moves made it go by even faster. And I'm like, what am I going to do when I'm shipping a kid off to potentially going to college or wherever he decides to go or run in business like me or whatever? And it's just like what a whirlwind of stuff. So I would imagine just watching that transition between the first and now looking at your third going, it's about to be over.
Well, we just had this 10th anniversary where 10 years ago, my wife and I sort of turned our worlds upside down. She quit her job as a tenured professor at a college in the Chicago suburbs. I quit my job as a W-2 employee and launched my own mental health practice. And we moved out of the suburbs and out, sort of, I would say, to the cornfields, about 90 minutes west of Chicago. That was 10 years ago, right? They were going into kindergarten, second grade, and sixth grade. And it felt like you just had forever, you know?
Yeah.
And that 10 years, man. And I think to have that marker that was just this 10 years ago, this past summer, just really highlights how quickly it goes. You know, the reality is in the middle of it, it didn't feel like it was going fast. You know, what is it? The days are long, but the years go fast. I mean, that's the reality. Any parent who's out there going, I should be appreciating, you know, I don't know, whatever it is, poop smeared on the wall today. No, like that's, you're not, don't do that to yourself. Don't shame yourself like that. But as you approach the thresholds, it really does start to become more precious.
Yeah. And that's one of the reasons I love doing the business side. And I'd love to chat with you about your practice and how you kind of got that decision. But I had to leave the military because I was constantly gone. I was moving all over the place. The military was going a direction I wasn't happy with anyways. And it was like, I want to be a dad. Like there was one time specifically I will never forget. And I've said it probably 15 times on this podcast at least, but we're in Japan. I had my going away gift in Japan was Adam always TDY Barr, right? And TDY means temporary duty, which meant I was gone all the time. And my second kid was born while we were in Japan. My oldest was 1.5 years when we moved there, and I was just gone all the time. And I'd come back, and it was, you know, daddy, like on a, so glad to see you type of thing. Pick me up at the airport or at the train station or wherever. One time I was going to take trash out, and my son came running up to me, daddy, don't leave again, grabbing onto my pants. And I was like, oh, crap. Like, this is going to go by really fast, and I'm not going to know my kid, and my kid's not going to know me. And like, I can't have that. And it just broke my heart. So I'm curious, you know, that was a huge turning point for me. And I'm not trying to say there was or not on yours. I'd love to hear your turning point when you and your wife decided, hey, like we're going to make some big changes here, because that's a huge change, going from tenured professor and working in a W-2 as a doctor to now being like, no, like we're moving out of where we're at. Like what was the impetus to that happening?
Yeah, it's a good question. So, you know, that story probably started about 4 or 5 years earlier than that. I was graduated with a PhD in clinical psychology, took the typical sort of therapeutic track, outpatient mental health therapist working in a large practice. It's how you start. You can't sort of generate your own clientele right out of graduate school. And I was about 4 or 5 years into that, and I'll never, it was like October, I want to say it was October of 2011, and Blue Cross Blue Shield, which was my main source of revenue, right? They were the third party payer for most of my clients. They just announced, I think with like 90 days notice, that they were cutting their reimbursement rates to us by 15 to 30%. I was raising a young family. Our third had just been born. We had just moved into a new home. And we didn't have 15 to 30% margin in our family budget. And I just remember thinking, like, I got to quit depending upon these people. They don't care about me. And I'm going to have to find a way to start to generate more revenue. My first initial thought was I want to just make my services more known to people and increase demand for my services so that potentially at some point I can just get off of the third party payer system and just get into direct fee for service. That was just this wild thought, at the end of 2011. And I thought, well, this blogging thing's sort of a big deal. And so and I've always liked writing, so maybe I'll try that. And so I started blogging. My My 9th blog post went viral, which at the time I barely even knew what that was. It was a blog post called Marriages for Losers, and I'm convinced the title itself probably helped with that.
Probably helped
the
a bit.
idea
Yeah.
that, like,
Good marketing.
Yeah, for most of us in marriage, our egos take over and we're competing to see who's going to win. And what would it look like to let your egos go and compete to lose instead, compete to surrender and serve and care for each other. So that went viral. About a year later, a letter I wrote to my daughter went viral. I posted that on my blog. My colleagues thought I was crazy. They're like, you can't be posting this personal stuff on your blog. Like, it violated all the rules of the therapy space. But I was getting feedback from my clients actually that, like, oh man, I wouldn't have told you this, but now that I know that you struggle with it too, like, you know, I feel more comfortable being vulnerable with you. So I was only seeing benefits. And so I just went all in. And about 2 years into blogging, I posted another letter to my daughter from the makeup aisle of a Target store about her inner beauty. And it went crazy viral. She and I wound up on the Today Show. It was a trippy experience. From there, got connected to a great literary agent and wrote my first book, Lovable. It was actually that book that really connected me to the GoBundance tribe in the first place. So mission accomplished. I by that time I had, built an online following of about 10,000, people on my email list, and my book was selling decently, and it allowed me at this moment where my wife's like, I can't keep doing the academic grind. She was a graduate level professor, which meant she didn't get summers off. She didn't get holiday. I mean, she was working all the time on research and producing science and mentoring students constantly. And she's like, she's burnt out basically. And right around that time I was like, I think I've generated enough demand for my services that I could leave the W-2 position and start my own practice and even become sort of the referral stream for hiring therapists who could, then take on the overflow of clients I can't see. So in summer of 2015, that's ultimately what we did. And the way we did it was we moved out back to my childhood hometown of Dixon, Illinois, out here in the cornfields of Illinois. And my wife took a job as a director of a outpatient mental health center here for underserved people. And I opened up a practice in the suburbs. Now, I could relate to your being away because for 6, almost 7 years, I commuted back to the suburbs for 2 full days a week. And what I did was I worked all day Monday, spent the night in there, worked all day Tuesday, and then came back out here to Dixon. And so I felt like I was sort of out of my kids' lives for 48 hours every week. And that was really hard. And I did that for a long time. So that was sort of the exit from the W-2. And in a way, it meant I was a little more absent than I was before. And it wasn't until some significant changes happened for me around COVID that I was able to finally, that's its own story. I guess I feel like I've been going on for a while.
No, it's a long podcast. You can. That's allowed.
I can do that. Yeah, it's a long form podcast. So, okay, well then I will. See, I still got that old therapist training in me where you're supposed to listen and not talk. Right? So you get on the podcast.
That's my turn now.
I once went out to dinner with, this was back in the W-2 job, with 8 other therapists. We all went out to dinner. And the next morning we were all meeting in the staff room, and all 8 of us thought we had talked too much. And I was like, it's literally impossible for all 8 people to be guilty of talking too much, right?
Yeah.
And it's sort of built into the psychologist training. But that the practice that I opened, it maxed out at I think 4 full-time therapists in addition to myself. COVID hit. We had this crazy, outpatient mental health providers had this crazy couple of months where prior to COVID, seeing clients remotely, like online, by phone, by video, was actually illegal. Like, you weren't allowed to do that. You had to see them in person, or insurance companies wouldn't reimburse the services. Suddenly, overnight, you have to see them remotely, but there's no infrastructure for doing that. Like, Zoom exists, but it's not HIPAA compliant. right? There's really very few HIPAA compliant services.
Yeah.
And so my wife and I were sort of both tasked with having to overnight turn our in-person therapy practices into online practices. It was super stressful. I didn't handle the stress particularly well. Early on in COVID, I was so tense and so on edge that I was pounding on my oldest son's door, Aiden's door, one morning to wake him up to get on Zoom for his classes. And I pounded on the door so hard, I set off lower back spasms that debilitated me for like 3 weeks. Like, I was not handling my emotions well. Then by about June, the back's starting to feel better. My wife had convinced me to buy an above ground pool because all the local pools were closing for the summer. And so we had the pool installed, and one Sunday afternoon she was filling it up. Well, the way she did it was she hung the hose over the side of the pool and then put a rock on the hose to anchor it there, and the rock wasn't heavy enough. And we just left it for 3 hours and came out 3 hours later, and the backyard is a lake and there's no water in the pool. And I got triggered and just lost my stuff, and it was like, okay, you can't act this way. And so I'm going to go blow off steam on a bike ride, right? That's how I'm going to get this anger out. And literally like 5 minutes into a very dysregulated, incautious bike ride, I was almost hit by a car. I went over the handlebars, broke my left collarbone in 2 places on an asphalt road. And, sort of a weird break. The way it worked was it basically didn't heal properly. They're called fibrous tissue non-union fractures. So I've got a couple hinges in that collarbone now where I didn't have any before. And it made for a really like long, painful recovery. So by New Year's Eve going into 2021, I was sort of out of shape. I was, knowing that I needed to take care of my body and my fitness. So I was sort of exploring fitness resolutions for the new year. And at the time I was listening to a book. I was like, I'm scrolling on the internet, looking at like keto versus paleo, and like circuits versus strength, and I'm listening to, The Untethered Soul by Michael Singer, a book that a lot of entrepreneurs are familiar with. And he says, don't let anything in life be important enough that you're willing to close your heart over it. Don't let anything in life be important enough that you're willing to close your heart over it. And I thought, most of the suffering that I've experienced in the last year, it's not because of COVID. It's not because of water in the backyard. It's not because of kids who don't want to get on Zoom. It's because I'm closing my heart to all of that, right? And so right then and there, I made a resolution for 2021, which was moment to moment, I will notice my heart closing and try to open it back up. Moment to moment, I will notice my heart closing and try to open it back up. Easier said than done.
Yeah, of course.
Right? And so, I listened to the rest of the Singer book. I bought it and read it. And the only thing I could find him say over and over again was, well, the way you open it up is you just relax and release. And I'm like, oh, and easier said than done. I'm not able to pull this off. And so it sort of set me on this journey of like, if I'm going to be able to keep my heart open through anything, I'm going to need to create the curriculum for doing that, because it doesn't exist anywhere. And so that's sort of what I set out to do going into 21 and 22. And again, to bring a long story back to the question of my business, I'm standing in my driveway talking to one of my employees later that year, and I can feel my heart start to close, right? I can feel that thing happen in my chest when my body and my spirit start to resist what's happening, start to resist the conversation and the direction that it's going. And so I'm standing at the top of my driveway. I'm on headphones doing an audio call, and I feel my heart start to close. And by this point, I can recognize it for what it is. And I do this brief little exercise that I developed by that point to open my heart. And I get my heart open in that moment to what's going on. And out of nowhere, I hear a voice inside of me say, let it die. Let it die. And I knew immediately that was speaking about the business itself, the mental health practice that I had opened up at that point 6 years earlier, let it die. So it took me about a year and a half to let it die in a healthy way and to launch my therapists into their own careers and their own practices. And at the end of 2022, I closed up shop and transitioned completely into doing online coaching of entrepreneurs who want to make their relationships as successful as their businesses. That's what I do now. So I'm home all the time. Nice. I've gone from being gone 48 hours a week to being here all the time. And it's a tremendous blessing to get to do what I love with the kinds of people that I love, in the place that I love from home. So that's the quickest way I can explain how I got here.
What's going on, everybody? I wanted to jump in and take a second to tell you about the awesome team over at Wise VAs. Oftentimes, as entrepreneurs, we can feel a bit overwhelmed with mundane tasks that eat up our valuable time, and it's time to reclaim that schedule, all right? It's time to stop doing some of those $10 an hour jobs and give them back to an elite group of talent that are there specifically to help you and help you stay in your zone of genius. So delegate those $10 an hour tasks to focus on more $1,000 an hour tasks. Reclaim what matters most in your life, which is your time. Get that amazing team of elite remote talent that is there to help support you and make sure that you are giving back the best to your company. So schedule a free strategy call at getwisevas.com/Adam. That is getwisevas.com/Adam. It is an amazing group, an amazing team. They do an awesome job with everything that they've got going on there. If you have some tasks on the side, whether it's administrative, whether it's editing, whether it's recording, whatever it is, they have got an assistant for you, someone who is going to be able to help you out and take some of those tasks off of your plate. I thank Wise VAs every day for helping me process all of these podcasts, helping me take care of a bunch of stuff in the background. And I definitely would recommend them over to you. So again, getwisevas.com/Adam. All right. Thanks a lot. Back to the show. No, I absolutely love it. It's one of the, I tell people all the time, I'm like, you're going to walk through your life looking at things through the wireframe that you've built in your previous experiences. You went through college, you built a wireframe, what it looks like. You're going to go to these large practices and you're going to view everything through that until something comes and crumples it up. COVID was a thing that crumpled up everything for people. Sometimes it crumpled them up. It just completely tore people down. Right. But it changed a perspective for a lot of folks. And it sounds like it did that for you. For me, getting married to my wife was a huge wireframe change. Like I had no idea the world that I had never seen before until I married her. So as you're now like coaching all of these entrepreneurs, you're helping guide them, you're using your previous experience and going, hey, like what's going on? If you were to be talking to yourself 6 years ago, going through 5 years ago, going through all that stuff, like I listen to Tom Bilyeu a lot. He's I don't know if you know who he is, but he has Impact Theory and a big podcast. He's a guy who created Quest bars, the protein bar set. Absolutely. Really solid business guy to listen to and whatnot. But he and his wife have this saying. It says it's not about the tea. When it started with an argument that they got into about the tea because his wife is British, so of course you have tea in the house. But he looked at her and said, "Wait a minute, I don't think this argument is actually about the tea." So now when they realize they're getting in an argument that has nothing to do with what they're actually arguing about, he says, hey, it's not about the tea. And in your case, it was not about the hose, right? It was not about these things, right? So how do you kind of talk to people to say, hey, this is how you can catch yourself in those moments. This is how you can be aware of what's going on. This is what you might actually be doing so they can become better, more supportive husbands, entrepreneurs, fathers.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, this is really, what you just asked really intuitively is like, what is at the heart of the process that I've developed for learning how to keep one's heart open in any situation and to not get triggered in those moments where we're commonly triggered into the same pattern of rupture and repair in relationships. And the process starts, there's 3 parts to it. It's getting calm, getting free, and then getting connected. And usually we do that in the wrong order, right? We get triggered and we get dysregulated and we try to connect ourselves in order to calm ourselves. And it's literally worked 0 times in human history because you're in protection mode when you're triggered, and protection mode and connection mode are mutually exclusive impulses. You can't do both at the same time. And so the first part of the process is about getting calm. Number 1, using your body's warning signs to recognize as early as possible that you are about to be triggered. And there's some pretty good data that shows your body tells you about 80% sooner than your thoughts and actions that you're about to be triggered. So, okay. Give yourself a little bit of warning sign by learning to tune into your body. Begin to practice the, at first, somewhat excruciating practice of watching your defensive urges come up instead of wielding your defensive urges, right? Which is, at first really hard, but you get better at it. And then ultimately, instead of like expecting someone else to say or do something different to help you feel calm in here, right? To actually go to the source of the dysregulation, your own nervous system, learn how to get it calm. Until you're back to calm. I mean, think about it this way. When your nervous system is dysregulated, it's your mind and your body's way of saying you're about to be annihilated, right? That's what that fight or flight reaction is for. Nobody who's about to be annihilated, if they're in their right mind, should sit around and reflect on what's this really about. Yeah. Right. So you have to take responsibility for getting that nervous system back to a regulated state in order to be able to now move into the higher mind and the higher consciousness and awareness and go, what's really going on under the surface here? And that's the second part of the process, getting free of the emotional patterns that are actually underpinning that triggered moment. So that you can begin to start to actually get your heart open. And yeah, it's not about the tea. One of the things we talk about in the getting free piece of it is, the tendency is to want to focus on the problems with our people, rather than the pain point that's being triggered inside of us. That usually there's some emotional experience happening underneath the surface that is actually responsible for being triggered. This person in front of you is just sort of the messenger. They're just, and one of my favorite sort of Eastern stories and parables is, it's about a guy, he's on a foggy lake one morning in a rowboat, just as peaceful and, enjoying his morning. And then all of a sudden his boat crashes up against another boat on the lake, and he screams, "Watch out where you're going," at the guy in the other boat. Right as he screams it, a breeze comes along and the fog dissipates and the other boat is empty, right? And that this is essentially what we're doing in our relationships all the time. We're really reacting to the bumping of boats, but we're yelling at the other person as if they're the only cause, as if they're the only person to blame for the bumping of boats. So yeah, slow down. Bring your awareness to like, what's that pain point under the surface here that is really driving my triggered reaction? Start to become familiar with that. Pivot the conversation, at least for a moment, from the conversation between you and everyone else to the conversation with that internal experience. Start to see what's happening under the surface there. So that's that. You're very intuitive to direct us to that, because that is key to the process.
I think that it's funny that parable I actually printed out and gave to my 10-year-old, and I said, I want you to read this to your brother as well. Right? And I want to chat about it and see what your thoughts are. Because I caught us all, I mean, we all do it, right? But I caught my boys especially, like, oh, well, he meant to do blah, blah, blah. You have no idea what he actually meant to do. You're projecting what you believe he meant to do.
Right.
You don't actually daggum know. Even if he tells you that's what he meant to do, he doesn't even know what he meant to do half the time.
He may not even know. That's right.
So he's 6. He doesn't know what he means to do at all. So, but I love that parable because it's very easy for us to, and I try to say, use the real life examples. We're driving down the road and somebody cuts me off, and I have a tendency to be a very aggressive driver. I've driven in a lot of very hostile countries and done a lot of crazy things, and sometimes that part of me comes out, and I have to remind myself that guy may be on the way. He may have just got a phone call. His wife's in labor. He may have just had. I have no idea why he just cut me off in this road, or why he flipped me off. Like my son's had to go.
Right.
Daddy, he just put his middle finger up at you. And I'm like, I don't know. I don't know what he's got going on, but it's, let's just pray for him and hope that his day gets better, because sometimes it's an empty boat and we're going to blame something.
It's such a great example. Like the pathway for your reaction isn't directly from his middle finger to your response, right? The pathway is his middle finger triggers an experience inside of you. That then leads you to react. So if you can have that sort of presence and equanimity to transform the inner experience, essentially what you did was from potentially one of being triggered to compassion or empathy, or at least patience, tolerance, right? Like you transformed your inner experience. So you're not going to react to it. You're not going to be triggered. And I'm a psychological scientist, so I like statistics, and the mechanics of statistics. One of the things I often talk about is the concept of intervening variables in statistics. So the idea is that just because two things are correlated doesn't mean they cause each other, right? Like, it's about to get cold here in north central Illinois, and people will start to wear winter coats. Does the cold weather cause winter coats? No. The cold weather causes people to become uncomfortable, and so then they put on winter coats. The discomfort is the intervening variable that connects the other two. Another good example, better sleep leads to better test scores. Does sleep cause good test scores? Obviously not. If you continue to sleep, you wouldn't go to the test. You get a 0, right? Better sleep causes better concentration, which causes better test scores. The concentration is the intervening variable. So what you do and how I react to it, the intervening variable is the pain point that what is getting stirred up in me when you do that thing. So let's go to the source of what's actually driving my reaction, which is that internal pain point that's getting stirred up.
I want to turn that on the dad side of the house, because it's very easy. So I look at some of the things that my kids do, and I think to myself, boy, I was like that, and I want to get rid of that now, because I know the pain that's going to cause later. But that leads me to now lead in a different way than I probably should, because I'm leading in a defensive form, as opposed to like, let me redirect into the positive, the right way to do things. So if I'm looking at things as a dad and I'm walking around, what is a good way for us to kind of mentor our kids, teach our kids, lead our kids in a way that is fostering growth instead of coming from a fear from what we either saw when we were kids or whatever? Like, how do we do a better job at that?
I can't remember where I heard it. I think it was at a front row dad's retreat somewhere, but it's the idea that we're often parenting our kids to survive our childhoods rather than to thrive in their own, right? We are, something that I know that I say is that when it comes to parenting, we worry from our wounds. Like if you pick the one thing that you're most worried will happen to your children, there's almost guarantee that you have a wound somewhere proximal to that experience, right? And so we are so invested in trying to help our kids bypass that painful experience that we're not really necessarily parenting according to their personalities, their current circumstances, their situation, and their emotions. We're sort of parenting according to our past, our pain, what we wish had been prevented in our lives. And so I think the first thing I would say is when you can feel yourself parenting with a closed heart, and I mean that very specifically, like when you feel that tension in there, you're reacting to your kids, you're slightly triggered in response to them. Ask yourself what pain point of yours is activated right now. I'd say it's actually activated right now. You're like, oh, I can see if you do that, you're going to be rejected by your friends at school next week if you keep acting like that, right? And so your heart starts to close and you start to try to be more controlling, or you become maybe more critical, or you just sort of have a sense of urgency in your parenting that you don't want to see there. Pause. Can you feel your own sense of rejection, right? Can you let yourself have that feeling? Guess what's going to happen in that moment? You're not going to show up to your kid with more tenderness and empathy and compassion. You're immediately going to be slower. You're going to be softer. It doesn't mean you'll ignore this dynamic going on, but having just connected a little bit more with your own sense of rejection, you're going to be like, everything I wanted to do 5 minutes ago would have made him feel more rejected. Yeah.
Right? By dad, not only his friends next week, but by dad, which is a way worse scenario than friends next week.
Exactly. Yes. Like now he's rejected by everybody. And so yeah, just make a little bit of space to actually feel the pain point that you're actively trying to protect your kids from right now. It'll slow you down. Your heart will open up, and you're going to show up with way wiser possibilities than if you were feeling the sense of urgency of needing to spare them something.
You said these two words earlier when we were talking about the middle finger thing, but I tell people all the time it's the difference between reacting versus responding. And it's one of those, if you could take that second, because the reaction is the first thing that comes to your head. Like, I'm ready to go. Like, that's your fight or flight. That's your response based off of your previous experience. But you need to stop and respond and take that moment, understand where it's coming from, understand what the goal of this conversation is going to be, then have the conversation with the kid. And I say this like I do it really well at home. I don't. I fail miserably at it, just like every other dad out there. But the fact that I can catch it and go, okay, let me reset it, right? Because the worst thing that the thing that I bring it up a lot because it breaks my heart. But there's this image that I can't remember where I saw it, but I've seen it multiple times where it's like this dad beating their son, and then their son grows up and beats their son, and then their son grows up and beats their son. And if all you're doing is reacting every single time, that's the pattern you're creating. It may not be in abuse, in literally pulling out your belt and beating your child, but it may come out in verbal abuse. It may come out in neglect. It may come out in any number of different ways. Yes. It may come out in being over empathetic over something that now you've created a child that needs a bubble. And it's like, what in the world? Like, it's so, setting that moment to step back, respond, don't react.
Yes.
It's much easier said than done, of course, as the two of us are sitting here on microphone saying that, than not in the scenario, but.
Well, it happened to me this morning. I mean, I don't mind shared. Like, I often say that a reaction is a failure of self-regulation, while a response is the fruit of self-regulation, right? So this morning, I get an email, and my son, he is a senior. He has a space between a couple of classes, and he always drops by about 9:30 in the morning. I can hear him upstairs, right as I'm getting an email from his first college choice saying that his application is incomplete, and the early action deadline is just a couple days from now, and so I feel it. I feel my heart close, right? Like, and I get urgent, I get controlling, I get critical, I get aggressive, right? That's what my close heart's going to do when I'm in fight or flight mode. And so I'm walking upstairs because I can hear him pounding around up there. And I was saved by the fact that he actually ended up in the toilet in the bathroom before I got up there. So it gave me a few minutes to go, oh yeah, just for that awareness to kick in of, oh yeah, that's how I'm showing up. I'm going to try to take control of this to try to calm myself down, when in fact that's just going to make the situation worse. Right. So get yourself regulated, was able to do that pretty quickly, hollered into the bathroom, hey, check your email. He goes, I already got it. Don't worry. I'm on top of it. All said and done. I mean, that's it. Yeah. And the things I would have communicated with that control, that aggression, that closed heart, never needed to be communicated. They would have been hurtful.
So this is something that you really have worked on a lot since COVID, you said, right? Like that's where you really started to notice it in yourself. 5 years, yeah. So what would you say, I mean, before that, what sort of, well, I guess this is a before and after moment, right? Where we can kind of draw the line and say, okay, for all the things that you did before that were maybe, we can call inappropriate now, that you've seen it, versus all the change after, what sort of conversations did you have to have with your kids to kind of work through some of that? So if somebody's listening to this, they're like, okay, I know I need a change, but I've already broke my kids. Like, no, like you didn't already break your kids. Yeah. They're pretty resilient, but yet how do we work through that to say, hey, like I really need to mend some things. Maybe it's with my wife, maybe it's with my kids.
Yeah, boy. Thank you for that. And the first thing I would say to any parent, because loving parents will have that thought going through their head right now, is that kids do not need perfect parents. They need parents who know they're not perfect, right? Yeah. Like the moment they come back to you and go, I think you might have broken me in this way. If you can go, I think I did too, yeah. Right? Yeah. And you can handle that non-defensively and with an open heart, that right there is, a tremendous leg up in their own journey and healing, that a parent can be open to that and talk to them about it. So my first response to your question is go talk to my 22-year-old, because he was almost moved out of the house by the time I started to really be able to bring a consciousness to this. I do think part of it is being willing to have conversations about it when they're ready, right? Like your heart closes at the idea that you could have negatively influenced your kids. So ironically, what you'll want to do is rush into a conversation to repair it so that you can feel better in here. And just knowing that you're preparing yourself for that time when they want to have the conversation about it, and that you're not going to force that. You can invite them, you can mention it, but they will come at their own pace to have that conversation. I think is part of it. I also tell parents regularly that if you're going to make some significant changes to how you show up as a parent, give them the framework for that.
Mm-hmm.
Like don't let them guess at what's going on and why it's different, you know? And for me that happened. I actually didn't do that initially with this. I had been practicing open-heartedness as my core sort of relational and spiritual practice for about a year. And we were going into the following year, going into 22, and we'd just gotten back from a vacation in Mexico, a Christmas vacation in Mexico. And my wife said, we were at the table, we were like planning to sort of, what are our goals, family goals for the year? What's our vision? We do it every year. What's the one practice we want to practice as a family this year? And my wife said, hey, why don't you tell the kids about this open-heartedness thing you've been practicing? And I did. And the context to this is that I've historically been a very anxious traveler. Like I've got like air travel trauma from childhood. It's like deep in my bones. Like I've not handled the stress of travel very well. And so my wife says, tell them about this open-heartedness thing. So I do. And my daughter, who's 12 at the time, dude, she looks at me and she goes, oh, that must be why every time something went wrong on the way to Mexico, I looked at you and I felt calm. And I was like, in a year, taking responsibility for the moment that I get triggered and opening my heart back up has created a calm presence that was sort of like an anchor for her on the way to Mexico. And so I think in part it's communicating that, like, hey, I'm going to take responsibility for how I get triggered in my life and especially in our relationship. I don't want you to own responsibility for your triggers. I'm entirely responsible for them.
Yeah.
Right. Now you might do things I disagree with and things I need to correct and discipline, but my job is to do that with an open heart, not with a triggered heart. And so, to give them the context that you're working on that, let them watch you evolve in that way. Far more powerful to watch a parent evolve than to feel like you've got a perfect parent. I mean, perfect parents are just pressure, right? Yeah. Like, oh, I guess I got to be perfect now.
And they're not existent. They're burying something. So
they're burying something.
Yeah.
They're burying something. They teach kids to bury things because the kids are inside their own skin and know they're not perfect. So like, I've got to hide this because mom and dad are. So yeah, just let them watch you evolve and make that part of the conversation.
I love it. You know, what came to my mind as you were saying that, being a prior military guy, is a bunch of military stuff. But, you know, I forgot who it was I was listening to. It was, I think, a Navy SEAL of sorts, some sort of special operator. And he was talking about how when you're moving through a building, you know, and you're a team and you're taking down a house, going in to find bad guys, you want to use as few words as possible. So you need to be able to just look at the person and know, gotcha, this is what we're doing, and then go. Because the more words you're using, the more exposure you have, the more there is a chance for confusion. If everybody knows what's going on and you're able to use few words, somebody's able to just look at you, know what's happening, and you go through it with calmness, and you can take the house down with quick speed, not having to worry about it. And I try to think about that as I'm going through the all sorts of things in life with my kids. I'm like, all right, well, what am I showing my kids by them just looking at me, which is what you just told a story about. Like, what am I showing my kids by them just looking at me? If they can just look at me and know, okay, yeah, things are fine, right? That's great. Like, if they're looking at me and going, things are not fine, something is happening, I'm giving off a signal one way or another. So I might as well figure out what that is and make that a wise move. But I fear that sometimes, to me, like, that is almost me burying what is actually happening inside. Because sometimes I am anxious, but I put on the cover because I know that this is what I need to do for my family. How do we kind of decipher when it's time to, like, because sometimes, like, things go on and we have to, like, I'm going to take it to a weird scenario because I'm again a military guy and done a bunch of stuff. Something bad is going on in the mall while we're walking around. Calm face, I'm gone, kids are up by the neck, and we're out the door. Things that, like, they're going to look at me and think everything's calm, dad's fine, but inside I'm like, no, like, it's game on. Somebody's around for my kids. But but that's not, it's just such a weird way for me to walk through life given my previous experiences. So I don't know really what my question is. I'm just going to throw it at you and say, decipher it how you want. So.
Yeah, there's so much good stuff there. I'm going to try to remember all the things that you brought to mind. One of them is, I do know that as entrepreneurs, I find it helpful to explain that there's a bunch of different ways you can splice the human experience, but one of them is into doing mode and being mode, right? Doing energy and being energy. Produce versus presence, right? Act versus attend. Achieve versus appreciate. Doing versus being mode. And we tend to, as entrepreneurs, overvalue doing mode. It's a part of our success. So we overvalue things like talking to our kids, teaching our kids, the active doing oriented things of parenthood. And we underestimate the value of our presence and the quality of our presence and of just the capacity to be with them fully and in a regulated way, and what a powerful influence that is in their lives. A soothed nervous systems, right? An open heart opens hearts. Just the presence with which you show up actually creates the space in which they can match that presence. So one of the things I definitely love to communicate is that the quality of your being is not a less influential or less powerful way to show up. It's just a different one. Right. And I think that's what you're getting at there. Like, you're doing something as you move through that combat situation, but the way you move through it, the being energy that you bring to it, the presence that you bring to it is just as powerful in terms of how you work together as a team. So, I think that's important. And I also liked what you said about the idea that we can lean too far in that direction as well. And we can sort of mask, hide. I think one of the big mistakes I've sort of made as a dad is taking up too little space, right? Feeling like this isn't the dad show, right? This is about them. And so I will actually keep waiting a year to tell them about my open-heartedness practice is a good example of that. And then it took my wife saying, speak up about it. Yeah. Right. And so I also want to be aware of that, ways that I sort of use the power of being as actually sort of a disguised way of not showing up, not taking up space, not leading, not guiding. And to be aware that a closed heart can show up like silence as much as it can show up like violence, if that makes sense. Okay. And so to be aware of the state of your heart when you're being quiet, and be aware of the state of your heart when you're talking, and just make sure that your heart is open given whichever mode you tend to show up in.
Interesting. Okay. I'm going to try to say that again, what you just said. The heart could show up as silence or violence, right?
A closed heart can show up as silence. A closed heart can show up as silence
or violence.
Yep. Yeah. We tend to think a closed heart only shows up aggressively, but a closed heart is always showing up protectively. And if we think silence can protect us, if we think silence is the thing that can protect us from rejection or conflict or reaction, then a closed heart will go to the silent direction. If we think violence is the thing, aggression is the thing that will protect us from those things, then a closed heart will go in that direction. And so a closed heart doesn't show up just one way. It can show up in very different ways, but the function is always the same. It's self-protection rather than connection with the other person. Yeah. Yeah.
Man, and I love I wanted to foot stomp the self-protection side of the house. Like, when you're doing that, all you're doing is focusing on yourself when you close that heart up. Like, you feel like, oh, this is going to help me. Like, I'm going to say you, but I'm going to tell myself, because I'm a very logical thinker. And when I start to use the emotion side of my brain, I tend to, I have previous experiences that shown me that when I think too emotionally about something, I make bad decisions. So I will tend to walk into a situation and just close that off to make sure that I don't. And it tends to, now I just look like a cold, calculated jerk, as opposed to, okay, and really in my brain, I'm just like, hey, I've shut everything else off. This is what I need to do. This is where I'm going. And my family's like, are you really angry at me? And I'm like, oh, crap. Like, no,
I'm trying to do the right thing, which is to not let my emotions take over.
Exactly. It's such a fine dance, especially as you're trying to raise kids. And I really want to emphasize also what you said about the power of you made yourself as the dad kind of small, like stepping back. This isn't the dad show, but at the same point, the father oftentimes is the leader of the house, right? Mm-hmm. So you're setting the pace for the house. Mm-hmm. So if you are just reserved and step back, you're going to cause other people. You're either going to cause other people to just run out and be crazy, and then it's like, well, now what do I do? Or everybody else is going to be like, well, I don't know what to do. Dad doesn't know what to do, so I don't know what to do. I'm just going to stop back here and start back. Like, no, be a positive leader, showing up the way that we need to show up in the world. So.
Yeah, I caught myself in conversation not too long ago. I was around college choices, and my wife said something about me putting too much pressure on our son to go one direction with college or career. I can't remember which one it was. And I said, in all sincerity, I go, I haven't put any pressure on him at all. He has no idea what I think he should do. And I thought, that's not right.
And that's a lot of pressure.
like to have to figure that, to wade through that wilderness without any guidance. And I thought, oh man, this is one place where you're holding all the space, you're not taking up any space, and he needs some guidance right now.
Yeah.
To be aware that it's important to take up space with our children, especially if we're doing it with an open heart.
For sure. I absolutely agree with that. And more is caught than taught, which is one of the things that you were kind of implying in a lot of that. Like, how are you showing up? What are they seeing? How do they see how dad reacts and responds to different things? And they're going to catch it. They're going to catch it one way or another. You don't have to always be in the doing mode and producing and acting. Like, just be the person that they need to see, And that's one thing I've told. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry. I interrupted you.
No, you're good.
I remembered what you talked about being in the mall. Mm-hmm. And the difference between like your heart's closing, but you're pretending to be calm.
Yeah.
Right. And I would say that, it might be okay in some situations that the way to open your heart in the moment with your kids is to let them know that you're struggling, or to let them know. So one moment in particular comes to mind. It was in the middle of, I have a book coming out in March, and it was in the middle of pitching this book to various publishers that I got some really disappointing news from my literary agent right before I was getting into the car to go with my kids to a family gathering, and they were bickering and fighting about something, and my heart was already closed to what had just the information I just received, and now I'm being inundated by this. And I remember going, well, what does it look like to open your heart right now? It's not to be somehow calmer than you can possibly be. Yeah. It's just to acknowledge the full reality of the situation. So I was like, hey guys, I just got some super disappointing news from my agent, and it's got me feeling really frustrated and bummed and stressed. And this is making it really hard on me right now. Like, I don't have enough bandwidth to handle your addition. Would you guys mind? Like, could you just be quiet for now? And I'll let you know when I can handle it again. And they were just like, and it wasn't this like, oh, dad just shamed us into being quiet, right? Yeah. It was like, oh, we can love dad right now by being quiet and giving him the space to work out his own internal junk, right? And so, yeah, I think sometimes we can own that our heart's closed, and that's the first way we open it. Confess it, right?
For sure. And it allows your kids to, again, know that vulnerability is okay, that it's going to happen to you too. So communicate it with me, and we're all going to be in a much better position, because kids, don't you feel better than if I were to just go, would you shut up? I can't handle it right now. I think you guys like this side better. So
Exactly. I had this amazing moment with my daughter at the dinner table. This is about a month or so ago. I sat down to the dinner table. I had not had much time to sort of be in my own head or body throughout the day. But I sat down and I'm sitting there and I can't concentrate because I'm feeling sad. I can feel their sadness in me. And I'm like, So I was like, okay, hey, I'm like not going to cry there at the table, but hey, does anybody else ever just feel sad for no apparent reason? And my daughter goes, why do you ask? And I said, well, because I'm feeling sad right now and I have no idea why. And she goes, oh, I thought it was because you could tell that I feel sad right now and I have no idea why. I was like, oh, like that. She was carrying that around in there.
Yeah.
And if I come to the dinner table feeling the pressure that dad's got to be happy at the dinner table, because that's what good dads do, right? She gets to walk through that dinner with her sadness all on her own. But to open your heart and just acknowledge what is, gave her an opportunity to step into that with me, and now we're on the same page, right? So I think parents can take the pressure off of themselves to be perfect, to be happy, to be always open-hearted, and just to be able to name and acknowledge what is going on inside of them.
Yeah. I mean, it allows your kids to be able to feel, just like you said, to be able to do that same thing and have that vulnerability. It's the same reason that I try to get down, and if I screw something up with my sons, I will get down on a knee so that I'm eye to eye with them, apologize to them for what I screwed up, and say, Daddy can screw up just as bad as anybody else. So let's make sure that's clear.
Oh gosh, that's huge.
And,
yeah.
Sometimes I feel like I overdo it because my kids are like, got it, Dad. Yeah, you make mistakes too. And it's like, but it's like, no, you need to know that. You need to know that, right? So, but also know that you got to fix them, and you got to. It's not just like I get to make 17 mistakes in a row and be like, oh well, I apologized. And no. There's another half to that you have to keep doing as a leader and as a young man. So
that might be one you can't overdo as a dad, is just to own your mistakes and apologize, right? They'll be,
as long as you're actually owning a mistake. Yeah.
As long as you're actually owning it and working to change the pattern in the future. Yeah, exactly. Which I get the sense you very much are. Yeah. They'll be joking about it at Thanksgiving dinner when they're 25 or whatever, about how dad.
Which I'm perfectly fine with. Yeah.
Exactly.
Perfectly fine with that. And hopefully while they're in a very healthy relationship and doing what they're going to be doing and being dads themselves, and or in my daughter's case, being a little mom herself. So and that's, to go back to it, I want to overemphasize again the, showing up and more being caught than taught. Is my wife and I have deliberate conversations with each other about how me as the father, as the leader, we're both Christians, so we look at it from a Christian perspective as well. She's side by side with me running through this, as I am technically the leader, but we're side by side running through this, and I need to represent what it means to my boys to be a good leader of the house, that is running a house well, that is taking care of the kids well, that everybody feels supported and loved, and then I'm showing what it means to respect and love my wife at the same time. And my daughter needs to be able to look at me and my sons and go, that's what a good man looks like. That's what I need to be looking out for later in life. When it's time for me to get married, is I want to marry somebody like my dad. Am I showing up in a way that my daughter's going to go, that's the kind of guy I want to marry,
Right on.
And that's, it's a good reminder in my brain and my wife's brain. Are we showing up in that way? So it helps us be more flirty and have fun at the house too, because they get to go, like this is a fun, positive relationship they have,
That's awesome, man. I love it. Yeah. To love your bride as Christ loved the church, right? Is there any bigger challenge to a man than that?
That's a pretty big one. That's
a pretty big
that's a pretty big feat right there. That's the bar is set high.
Thank goodness we also get grace.
Yes, no kidding. Yes. Thank God for grace.
Yeah, that was the first letter that I wrote to my daughter that went viral. Was the theme of the letter was to know that she's inherently interesting and she's inherently worthy of interest, and that she doesn't need to suppress parts of herself or accentuate parts of herself to be interesting to a particular man, but to trust that when she finds the man who's genuinely interested in who she genuinely is, then she's got a lifelong partner, right? And so I hope, what I hope and pray is that I've given her a model of a man who is genuinely interested in who she is for who she is. And fingers crossed.
Yeah. Because your daughter's the youngest, right?
She's the youngest.
Yeah. Yep. So same boat as me, 2 boys and then a little girl. And man, oh man,
up the rear.
There's something different about having the little girl. There's like how I need to show up and how I need to represent, because like with my dudes, I throw them across the living room into a couch. Don't get me wrong. I do it with my daughter as well. She loves to be thrown in the air and have a good time, but there's just something that's the rough and tumble boys. But then to look at the face of my little girl and know like, man, oh man, like you're just going to be a difference. You're going to be a different treasure in the world that I need to make sure is taken care of in just such a precious way. It's tough to verbalize, but
it is really hard to verbalize, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like when you say that, I almost just somehow travel back through time to what it was like when she was born and how different the feeling was from the boys. And it's just so hard to put words to that. She calls me out when I treat her too differently than the boys, that's for sure. But there, just this sort of tenderness and protectiveness and sense of responsibility that wasn't totally there with the boys. It's hard to describe.
Which I think is necessary though, right? Like we need to teach our boys to, how to show up as a, and I've got a thing on my wall here, my whiteboard that says, be a good man, not just a nice guy. How do I teach my sons to be good men in the world that stand up for good values, that support people, that care for people? And then if I look at my daughter and go, what is the world telling my daughter? And it goes back to what that letter was. The world is telling my daughter she needs to dress this certain way so that people can get these certain looks, but then slap somebody in the face if they give them that look. Okay, well, probably let's start with going back to the beginning of what does it mean to be a respectable young lady in the world. And my daughter's 2, so I can't run my mouth too awfully much on where this is going because I have a lot to learn here, but it's like, man, oh man, how do I have these conversations? Because the world is different for a woman than it is for a man. Because shocking, men are different than women, right? So like the world is trying to tell us they're not, but they are different. And we need to make sure that we're emphasizing that and showing that up in our house. So
the second letter that I wrote to my daughter from the makeup aisle, specifically, my friend had told me, like, he had texted me one day and he's like, hey, I'm in the makeup aisle. Like he was buying some makeup for his wife. He was stopping on the way home, and he was imagining his daughter like in that space with all the pressure to like look a certain way and to adopt some of the cultural standards of beauty, which have only, in the last, 12, 13 years have only become more demanding. Right. And he's like, it's trippy. Like it's a lot of pressure on my daughter. And so I went to a makeup aisle of a store just to sort of see what he was talking about. And there were literally like words plastered all over the makeup aisle, like these expectations about how you'll look. And, so the concept for the letter was just to write her a letter about taking those words, but applying them to her inner beauty rather than her outer beauty. And that's how the letter came to be, is just to try to direct all of our kids really to, their character, their heart, their soul, and to not get us fixated on projecting a certain external image for approval. Right. And so that's where my heart has been for a long time with them.
I absolutely love it. Yeah. I want to, preserve as much of the innocence in my family as possible while exposing them to what the world actually is, like you can be innocent and still know what's going on out there.
Absolutely.
I'll go to, that's one of the reasons I started homeschooling as well. Well, there's a few different reasons, but, I was a public school kid my entire life. And I thought it prepared me well for, when I joined the military, because I joined the military right out of high school. The month after I graduated, really? I was in the military. And then not too long after that, I'm in Iraq and then Afghanistan and bouncing around. And I was like, man, I was so well prepared for I went through so much stupid crap.
How long between high school and an active tour duty in Iraq?
Year and a half.
Oh, that is mind-boggling to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have a 22-year-old.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, 22, I was already on my second deployment. So.
You're already on your second deployment, dude.
I was in Afghanistan with the special forces guys doing crazy stuff out there. And it was like, whoo, what a whole new world,
Wow.
But I thought the public school prepared me for all of that, right? Like I knew when I joined the military and I was in the dorms, I was like, okay, I know what stupid people are doing these things. And I'd been to all the parties that had all the drugs, that had all the drinking, that had all the stuff. And I, seeing all the fights and all the things. It was like, no big deal. And my wife was in private school her entire time. And I always thought, no, like my kids are going to go to public school because it's going to prepare them. And then as I had kids, I was like, my job is not to let the world prepare my kids for the world. My job is to prepare my kids for the world. Like,
Sure.
what a terrible way of, like, I wish that I could have gone back and said, hey, these are the tools that you actually need for the world, instead of going and seeing the world and going, oh, yeah, let me pick up whatever tool I want. So it's like, man, I need to do a better job of showing up for my kids to teach them what the world is. Not so that, like, they don't need to be these innocent, never heard of anything, never seen anything terrible. Like, the world is out there. It's going to be there. They're going to find it. Like, but how do we walk through that, you know?
What a great example of personal growth, to have your identity so rooted in one thing, but then to be able to let that go, to evolve into something different. Like, all right, the ego just so badly wants to cling to some permanent sense of, I've arrived, I've got it figured out, here's my identity. But you didn't let that happen. That's beautiful, man.
It was not easy, I'll tell you that. Yeah. But I, again, like, my wife would be the huge portion of changing that up. And I think just having kids exposes you to a whole new world of saying, okay, yeah, you thought you knew what you wanted to do as a parent until you became a parent. And then you're like, okay, now I'm figuring out what I actually want to do. And then I interview folks like you, and I'm like, okay, no, I actually need to adjust a few more things. There are a few, like, pick up all the tools you could possibly do, and, like, chew the meat, spit out the bones. If there's things that you don't like, don't do it. But man, oh man, never stop learning, never stop trying to grow and figure out how to be a better dad and how to show up better for your wife, and how to, whatever, how to be a better businessman, insert whatever learning experience here, because I was closed off for a long time. Thought that I knew everything, like, for an Air Force guy, I had a lot of combat experience and different things. So because most Air Force guys didn't go through what I did, right? I went to Baghdad as a bomb dog handler with the Army. And then I went to Afghanistan with the Special Forces guys, like, not like more Army guys. So I'm like jumping out of helicopters, we're kicking doors in, doing all sorts of stuff. So then when I went back into the regular Air Force stuff and I'm with all these guys, I'm like, I know more than all of you guys. Like, I got this. And it was like, man, oh man, I had to sound like such a terrible, arrogant, egotistical jerk. While there may have been truth behind it. Like, man, oh man, did I come across horribly. So now as I'm trying to raise my kids, it's like, okay, well, how do you show up in the world with the experience that you have, allowing yourself to gain more experience as opposed to shutting it all out? Because I shut out a lot of people because I was like, there's no way I need to listen to that person. They've never done half the crap I have,
I got to figure it out. I think most of us probably, for being honest with ourselves, need to apologize for a decent portion of our 20s.
You're not wrong there. Yeah, you're not wrong there. Yeah.
I can think about all the people that I just sort of treated them like I knew exactly what I was doing, which is just this way of, there's so much uncertain at that stage of life, and there's so many possibilities, and so to be able to camp out in that sort of ego certainty is just it's a relief. But yeah. We can harm relationships with it for sure. For sure. And I was talking to a buddy of mine when he retired. He and I were dog handlers together many moons ago, and I went to his retirement like 2 years ago. And we were just sitting there talking about how horrible of people we were back then. And we're like, I cannot believe I treated people the way I did. Though I would imagine that there are multiple people that are still in the military that go, man, this one guy, Staff Sergeant Barr, what a jerk he was. I can't believe it. And I just hope one day they hear me on a podcast talking about this, or that they see me somewhere or something where I could say, man, I'm sorry I treated you like that, because that was terrible. Like, I was a horrible human being, and I wish that I'd have known. But again, you're in your early mid-20s, testosterone has filled your brain. You barely have a functioning brain yet at 23, 24 years old. And it's like, man, I want nothing more than to help my kids realize, especially my boys, to realize controlling that now and learning that now is a much better time than trying to figure that out when you're 25. I don't know if it's actually going to happen right now, but I would love to try, Yeah. I think one of the most sort of profound insights of becoming a parent for me was watching these three human beings come into the world with only their souls and no egos built yet. Yeah. And being like, oh, I was like that once, but I can't even relate to that because my ego, this protective sort of false self I've built, has sort of become such a central part of my identity. I mean, it really launched me on my personal growth journey to go, oh, most of who I think I am is just an ego I built up to protect myself. And now I want to figure out who I really am underneath that. And I give my kids credit for their existence sort of alerted me to that possibility. That's why I try to forgive myself most of the terrible things I did in my 20s, because I know that was my ego just growing and building and, gestating and trying to take care of me. And hopefully, and now I'm more aware of that. And when it shows up trying to protect me, I can make a different choice.
You're the psychologist, so I'll toss this over and say that's if I recall like the difference between the ego and the id. Is that right? Like the id is like who you are, like your actual self. Is that right?
It's a good question.
Misstating it.
I'm impressed. So Freud first used the word ego. So ego is just Latin for I, for me, for the self, right? And he originally used like a 3-part sort of model of the, which by the way, when he did it was incredible. When Freud was around, they were still drilling holes in people's heads and seeing what color the fluid was that came out. And so for him to look in the interior of a person and go, there's 3 parts to him. There's the id, which is just all of the more animalistic drives for pleasure, for for survival, and all of these sorts of things. Then he said, there's the superego, which is everything you get from culture that says you should be a certain way. And then there's the ego, which is the part of you, the self, that is trying to manage these 2 competing demands, all of the visceral urges I have and all of the rules I have about what I'm allowed to do and not allowed to do. And this ego is the thing that moderates the 2. I'm using the word ego more in the sense of the spiritual tradition passed down in the Christian monastic tradition, like Thomas Merton and Richard Rohr and these guys, where they say basically we arrive in the world with a soul, which is our true self, our original self, and then we build this ego or this false self to protect our soul, because our soul is completely vulnerable to pain, to rejection, to hurt, and so we build this false self to protect it. And the second half of our spiritual journey is about beginning to release that false self and returning to our soul. So when I say ego, it's more of like the false self concept.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. And, that false sense, that false self will definitely get in the daggum way an awful lot, especially in those 20s, like we talked about. So
it does. Yep.
So as you're I'm going to shift gears a tiny bit here and go to the business side of the house, right? You're focusing now on utilizing your knowledge, skills, and abilities and helping entrepreneurs have better relationships with their family. Yep. Is that right? Or with their spouse?
That's right.
So talk to me a little bit about that practice, how did entrepreneurship and, relationships kind of take the cake for you?
Yeah, it's a good question. So, the writing of the book Lovable, and then the reception of that book was really surprising to me. It's a book called Lovable, first of all. It's got a big red heart on the cover. Okay. And when I first published it, if you looked at the demographics of my online following, like Facebook, followers, 25,000 of them, they are mostly women from the age of about 25 to 49. Right. Okay. And mostly Christian women. And so, that was the audience that Lovable was written to. But I think I honored myself enough to be writing the book as much for me and for my children as for an audience. And so something about, number one, I'm a high achiever. I have an entrepreneurial spirit myself. I am a dad, and the book is written from the perspective of a dad. To my great surprise, the book was most embraced by entrepreneurial communities of men with really big hearts, and didn't see that coming. But it was first embraced by the Front Row Dads community, and there's some cross-fertilization there with GoBundance, and GoBundance started to embrace it, and then it started to spread from there. So ironically, I got up, it was right before COVID, I got up on stage at a GoBundance Winter Mastermind event, and I said, I'm here because of my book, Lovable. The most recent review on Goodreads of the book says it's a great book, just not for guys. So thanks to all of you for proving that wrong.
Nice.
And so that started to connect me with entrepreneurial communities, like-minded and like-hearted people. And members of those communities started to reach out to me going, I loved what you said on stage. I know you're a psychologist, never done therapy before, and would you like to do that? And my answer was no, I can't, because as a licensed clinical psychologist, I can only work within the mental health system in the state where I'm licensed. But as a coach, I could work with you, but that will be different.
Yeah.
And so that really became the bridge to my coaching career. Started to happen during COVID, and word of mouth sort of has always been my main form of marketing. Satisfied clients who are saying, Dr. Kelly's really helping me. You should talk to him. And so my coaching clientele began to grow from there. And by the end of 2022, I was ready to just jump all in with both feet into that space, and to really embrace that's the client that I love to work with, is the entrepreneurial. I love to work with people who take personal ownership. Yeah. Right? Like in the outpatient mental health space, I'd get a little bogged down because the most typical couples client, for instance, would be a husband and a wife who are really struggling, and they come into your office and they say, she says, this is what he's doing wrong. He says, this is what she's doing wrong. And then they look at me like I'm a judge and jury, and I'm going to decide whose fault it really is. And there's not a lot of personal ownership in that.
Yeah.
But when you get into the entrepreneurial space, there's a ton of personal ownership. And that I can work with. And so whether I'm working with an individual who wants to improve their relationships and wants to take ownership for how they're showing up to those, or I'm working with a couple where both husband and wife are taking ownership for how they're each contributing to their relational pattern, like that's my jam. And I get so excited to do it on a daily basis. So that's where I'm at. And it's what brings me quite a lot of joy at this point.
That's awesome. Oh, my mom is leaving. Bye, Mom.
Hey, bye, Mom. That's awesome.
She wanted to come and see the grandkids, and she's been up in New York seeing grandkids up there. So now she's down here in Florida and wanted to come back and see the grandkids. So
nice.
Not her son. She has nothing. She doesn't want to see me at all. So I'll bury myself in the office. So. I'm curious on you talked about your followers on Facebook, mostly 25 to 49-year-old women. And I'm curious if you've kind of sat back and analyzed that thought, like the book was picked up mostly by the men, mostly women have been following you. Was the gap maybe in there that the women were following you because they want more like that out of their men? And they were like, hey, let me see if I can help use this to teach my husband, to teach, quote unquote. And then when it was finally out there in a book, the men were like, oh, okay, here's a dude I can listen to. I'm just curious if you've analyzed that or what your thought process is there.
That's a great question. I will say that my writing, whether it's in Lovable, I have a second book, True Companions, I have a novel, The Unhiding of Elijah Campbell, and then I have The Road Less Triggered that's coming out in March. Most of my writing deals with the inner work that it takes to make relationships work, right? Historically, women have been more inclined to look inward, and men are more inclined to look outward. Women are more inclined to get into the emotional terrain of things and the relational terrain of things, whereas men tend to stay camped out more in the intellectual and the vocational dimensions of life. I think that's what's been so encouraging to me. I will say that, like Lovable, for instance, and the rest of my work, it doesn't appeal to all entrepreneurial communities. Okay. It appeals to entrepreneurial communities where there's sort of a drive, an eagerness to live a whole life, to live an integrated life, to recognize that emotional healing is sometimes as powerful of a force for vocational success as anything else. And so I think what you're getting at is more the psychographic of my ideal reader, which is somebody who really wants to look at their interior space, their emotional terrain, and wants to take responsibility of it and become the healthiest version of themselves so they can show up in a way in their relationships to impact those relationships and change them through how they're showing up, right? Yeah. Not what they're trying to control. So like, I think I still have readers in both spaces, but they're going to be that kind of reader.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense.
No one's ever asked me that question before. I was thinking that through on the fly there, but I think that's the right, for now at least, I think that's a solid answer.
I was thinking about it on the fly too. So that works out for both of us.
Yeah.
So as you're kind of growing it out, what is the plan for growing the business? Is it more, are you going to stick to just, you love the coaching side of the house? Or are you going to try to, I mean, before you had a practice that you had, multiple doctors like in your practice, 4+ you, and like, is this just going to be, man, I just love this so much, I just want to do what I'm doing now for the rest of my life type of thing? Or are you planning on growing this out, having more coaches like you to work under you, or what's the thought?
Good question. I have the advantage of having run, a practice with a number of other providers, and knowing that that's not my passion. And knowing that it is very tempting from an entrepreneurial perspective to build out a large coaching practice with multiple coaches, but it's just not my passion. It's not what would get me up in the morning. And so my vision for this right now is to actually provide what I call concierge coaching to a handful of clients. Like, I know how to get you and your relationships where you need them to go, and I'm going to pour into you and a handful of other people to get you there. And then once you're there, I often say, like, my caseload is like a full parking lot, one in, one out, right? Once you're there, we're going to celebrate that. And then the next person I'm going to do that for, because that's what brings me joy, is walking sort of in lockstep with somebody all the way where they need to go. And so that's a part of it right now, is getting even better and more efficient at doing that for people. I continue to love to grow my speaking career. Like you, I don't want to be gone a lot. But I'm enjoying talking to bigger and bigger audiences and spreading the message of relational health to bigger audiences. I love my online community at Substack now. We've been over there for a couple of years. I was somewhat of an early adopter. We call it the Less Triggered Tribe. And basically we have, I have weekly writings there for free subscribers. That paid subscribers, though, get to get on a call with me once a month where I do a keynote, and we do some live group coaching and training around this concept of how to show up less triggered in your relationships, show up more open-heartedly. We've got an online course coming out there in the spring, quarterly trainings that are going to be associated with that course. So trying to reach more people through the speaking and the community building modalities, but keeping the one-to-one help that I provide people really specialized, customized, and concierge.
I love it. Yeah, that's I love that that is not going to be what fulfills you, is to grow this thing and build it and all of that, because it is very tempting all the time as an entrepreneur to just, I have to grow it. That's what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to grow it. But man, oh man, do you see a lot of them, they grow it and then they're like, I hate this. I don't want to do it anymore at all. And then you've lost the joy of it.
That's right. I feel, for me personally, part of the growth that I've experienced as an entrepreneur is that my intuition, my passion, and my joy are going to be the things that guide me in what I do with my career. Not revenue, not notoriety, not popularity and those kinds of things. But the pleasant surprise that I keep experiencing is that a lot of those things keep increasing along with following my intuition, my passion, and my joy. So I'm just going to keep doing it, and we'll see where it leads.
I absolutely love it. What do your kids think about that as you're kind of doing it? What do you like? Do your kids know mostly what you do? What are their thoughts on what you do?
So, they all came to the Today Show. They were very young at that point. Yeah. But then 4 or 5 years ago, I had an opportunity to speak to the Green Bay Packers. My boys got to be a part of that, be in the room for that. I always joke that, so I speak to the Green Bay Packers. Okay. We're in the car on the way home with someone else who was at the event. And, I think I was really cool to my kids for about 3 minutes, but then they found out a guy in the car with us knew the drummer from 21 Pilots. And we get back to the hotel room, and my wife looks at right. My wife looks at the boys and is like, so how did it go? And they're like, we met a guy who knows the drummer from 21 Pilots. And they didn't mention the talk at all. So, I think there's something, at least in my sense, I think there's something healthy about, just getting to stay dad to them and them not kind of getting too too caught up in all of the other things that I'm doing. I mean, that's really, at the end of the day, that's what they want. They want to know that I'm here and I'm paying attention and here to support them when they need it. So, but at the same time, like I said, I'm trying to take up more space and be conscious of letting them know exactly what's going on. And if they're more interested, they'll jump into it.
Yeah. I was listening to somebody recently. They were talking about hustle culture. Is it good for Christians to be a part of hustle culture? And when the question first came, I was like, of course, it's great to be a part of hustle. And then I heard the response where it was like, well, hustle culture tends to be is very me-centered and going off on the me-centered, as opposed to doing what you're doing with Christ as the center. And as you were going through that, I'm thinking to myself, okay, like, am I showing up in my business with Christ as the center? And am I showing up as a family with Christ as the center? Yes, it can be still about what I'm doing. Yes. But what I'm doing is not about me. Yeah. It is about how I'm showing up in the world as a solid Christian dude, not, oh, look at dad on the stage. Did you see dad? You know? And if your kids can, I love how you were saying that, like, let my kids just realize that I'm dad. And okay, my dad is expressing God's love in this way in the world. My dad is showing care and compassion in this way in the world. Yes. Not, oh, look how cool my dad is sitting there talking to the Green Bay Packers. So
I heard Bruce Springsteen say to somebody, I think it was on a Howard Stern interview, saying like, yeah, my kids come to my shows, but anybody can like be a superhero to them. They just need me to be dad, not a hero. Yeah. Right. And I took that to heart. And what you just said, really powerful, especially timing wise. Just this morning in my prayer and meditation, what surfaced the most for me was none of it's about you, Kelly. It's about being a portal for the flow of God into this world and the flow of God's love into this world. And I was incredibly productive today, but it wasn't about me. Right
up until you started talking to me.
No, I consider this incredibly productive as well. I think we worry that when we set aside some of the ambition that comes from that ego, right, that is about trying to establish oneself in the world and one's reputation. And I think we worry that like when we operate from a different, more soulful place, that will somehow become less productive, but it's not my experience at all. I think we become more productive, but that productivity doesn't have to feel quite as much like hustle, right? It feels like presence, and it feels like doing it for something that's bigger than you. So I won't say that every day I'm able to show up that way, but it's interesting that you mentioned it, because today that was exactly how I was feeling. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, perfect timing on that then.
Right on.
Well, Dr. Kelly, it has been a fantastic time getting to know you a bit more. I mean, I've heard you on stage before at GoBundance events, and now it's fun to just kind of sit here and have a conversation with you and learn who you are on a whole different level. If folks are listening to this and they want to get a hold of you for one reason or another, what is the best way for folks to learn more about you? Obviously, you got your Substack, you've got your books. Yep. What's the best way for folks to listen to you, reach out to you?
Yeah, my home base on the internet is drkellyflanagan.com. It's drkellyflanagan.com. And if you're interested in that new book coming out, The Road Less Triggered, Turning Conflict into Connection with a Single Choice, you can go to lesstriggered.com, and you can find out all about the great bonuses you get for pre-ordering it, and all the cool things we've got going on for those who want to upgrade to even more copies. There's some really exciting stuff coming up, and that page will tell you all about it.
Fantastic. So lesstriggered.com. And you said that comes out in March 26th, is that right?
Comes out in March 26th. Yeah. So,
okay.
Yep. We got a little time here, but you can pre-order it now, get the bonuses. You get the first chapter for free. You get a 90-minute masterclass for free that covers the entire process and the entire book. Chance to join the launch team, chances to upgrade and come to a summit that I'm hosting in June of 2026, which is going to be fabulous. And so anyways, there's lots of good opportunities there.
Really awesome. Well, Kelly, thank you so much for jumping on the podcast. I appreciate the conversation. I loved the back and forth. I really hope that everybody has as many notes on their notebook as I do. If you're listening in the car, hopefully you didn't pull your phone out to write all those notes down while you're driving. But everybody listening, thank you so much for joining me on another episode. Please reach out to Dr. Kelly if he can be of any assistance for you. LessTriggered.com, drkellyflanagan.com. Check them all out. Thank you again, sir, for jumping on. Thank you, everybody, for listening, and we will see everybody on the next show.
Thank you so much for listening to the BizDad Podcast. We hope you found some value in your time here with us, and we look forward to bringing you the next episode. If you've enjoyed today's show, please subscribe and share so you and your friends won't miss our upcoming episodes. Connect with us on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, and Rumble, where we continue these discussions and share more valuable content. Be the dad you know you need to be and run your business in a way you're proud to share with your kids. Keep crushing it.